Good evening and welcome to Business and Enterprise. I'm Colm. Tonight's guest on our programme is Daniel Barr, who is owner of Genie Technology. Daniel, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much for having me, Colm.
First of all, Genie, I think that's Irish, isn't it? What's the...
It is, yeah. It's to be certain.
To be certain.
Yeah.
And you're certain that you're in the right business.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, what does Genie do? Genie Technology.
I suppose there's probably two distinct areas of the business. One being IT support for small and medium businesses and public sector bodies and domestic customers. The other side of it is security services, so CCTV camera systems and door access control. So that's the two, I suppose, specific areas that we provide services in.
The security, I'm not sure if it's one of the services you provide, but I saw it on TV where somewhere in the States, somebody down in Offaly is monitoring them and kind of shouts down a microphone, get out, you in the red hoodie, because they can actually see what's happening. Are you aware of that service?
Yeah.
I just couldn't figure, because I assume to make it worthwhile, they have a lot of customers. So how would you, is there 1,000 screens in this?
Yeah, remote video monitoring is becoming more and more popular, so it is. It's far more dynamic than an actual, than for example maybe a PIR sensor or a beam being tripped. The operator can view the footage from following an event and can actually determine in real time if it's actually if it's an actionable event rather than a false alarm. So that is a service that we provide our customers. We use a couple of monitoring centres throughout the country where video footage would be sent directly to the monitoring centre. They have a number of operators monitoring the footage live, and following an event the operator can then action, whether it be to call the Gardaí or to give live an audible warning to the intruders that they're being monitored and that the Gardaí or whoever it may be are being contacted. So yeah, it's becoming a lot more popular. And it's a service that businesses certainly are taking advantage of. So
rather than having an operator looking at 1,000 screens, there's one screen with some sort of trigger that shows up. There's an activation in site 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
and it goes straight to that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And as I said, you do it in Ireland.
Yeah, there's quite
right across, or is it just kind of local?
Well, our services are primarily aimed at local businesses within the northeast. But with the advent of the internet and high-speed broadband links, it doesn't matter where the site is, and it doesn't matter where the remote operator is working from. So we would use a couple of monitoring centres that are actually about 100, 150 miles away down south. So but with broadband technologies, it doesn't matter where they're located. So just as you said about America, they could be quite easily monitoring a site from America or in America. That's the advantages of IP networks or internet, the internet. Yeah.
Because security systems have come on so much. A couple of years ago, you'd watch Garda Patrol. I know it's called something else now, but it'll always be Garda Patrol in my yard. Have you seen this? The man in this video, and it could have been a cat, it could have been you just had this grainy picture. Now they're absolutely high definition pictures that they have. With kind of cameras with the ability to zoom right in. Yeah,
it's an exciting, I suppose, era in terms of security and video security, because the two fields of security and IT or IP networks are actually merging, where CCTV cameras will be all run across computer networks, and that allows you to have the high definition or the Blu-ray quality maybe that people would be aware of. And I suppose it, as you say, it allows for far higher quality and the ability to zoom in retrospective of the event and not have that pixelation that you're probably talking about in terms of not being able to identify an object, whether it be human or machine.
So if you were asked to put an installation in a factory or a commercial premises, is the build-up work before you actually start installing, is that more important than the site survey, getting the correct angles?
Definitely, yeah. Again, I suppose with the newer technologies that are out there, an awful lot of the time we'll go into actually specifying a system, designing a system using numerous tools, getting full measurements of distances of areas you're looking to cover, and also the quality that you're looking to cover. So there's 3 or 4 different types of quality, whether it be recognition or identification, and to actually figure out how many pixels per foot or pixels per metre we need on each target. And that's, I suppose, a shift slightly away from the traditional systems where it's more a point and shoot. And that's, as I say, it's quite a learning curve for maybe the more traditional installers, but we're coming from an IT background also, it's a very natural direction for us.
And of course there was a time anyone could set up an installation like that. Nowadays you have to be regulated by the PSA. Do you find that was a good thing or a bad thing?
I think you could argue either side of the coin. It's definitely I suppose beneficial in terms of making it a far more professional field, in terms of training that's given, tax clearance certificates, employee rights. There's an awful lot of criteria to be able to achieve the private security certification, but certainly for a small business, it's quite a sum of money to have to pay every year to be able to provide them services. So it's creating a barrier to entry to the market, but I suppose it's for the end user, for the customer, it's providing a more professional service.
And I assume if you have the PSA on one side, I assume there's an alarm installers union or an alarm installers association on the other side, pointing out the fact that it is so unfair that if you have the likes of, I don't know, do Chubb still do TV? Yeah, so like a Chubb, we'd be a big international company, and then you'd have the more boutique company like yourselves, and the fee would be the same. That doesn't strike them as being fair. And have they not made any attempt to adjust the fee?
Yeah, there are different price levels, I suppose, in terms of turnover, but the initial level to come in at for even quite a small turnover is very high. Now, I know some of the electrical unions are trying to I suppose work with the PSA in terms of the electricians or the electrical contractors being able to provide security services. And I think there is talk of negotiating the initial fees that have to be paid, but even at the prices they're looking to bring it down to, it's still a lot of money to have to pay. To pay yearly.
And because you have to pay it before you can start to install. So if you decide, I've just decided I'm going to move into security industry, and I've just been qualified. I've done my course in Cavan Institute, and I'm now a qualified alarm installer. I'm going to set up a business. There's no learning curve. The first thing you have to do is kind of join up to the PSA, and the second thing you then have to do is obviously pay over the fee.
Yeah. As I say, it's quite hard for new companies or new sole traders trying to enter the market, because apart from the other fees in terms of public liability insurance, in terms of vehicle insurance, being tax cleared, it's another cost which as you say has to be bared before actually any profits are made from installing. But again, I think in the long run it will prove beneficial, and it'll take, I suppose, the guys that are not as focused on the longevity of a business. It'll take them guys out of it, because it's a criminal offence to install security cameras or intruder alarms without a license.
Now, from the other side, the customer point of view, are there plenty of customers around? Because as you're probably well aware, I'm now blow in, and I came up from Dublin where every house had an alarm and nearly every dog box had an alarm. Thankfully, crime is quite lighter down here outside of Dublin, and particularly in Cavan. Does that dig into your marketplace, or are there companies, because of the fact that they're in business and need insurance, need to have security, are the two of them tied in?
It's a good question you posed. I would say, unfortunately, whether it be the times we're living in, but the crime is definitely shifting towards rural areas, actually, whether it be alongside the urban crime or instead of it, because rural areas are seen as easier targets. And with all of the cuts in terms of Garda stations, of Garda budgets, that Garda presence doesn't seem to be felt in rural areas. So people are turning towards community text alert systems, towards security cameras that can be monitored on smartphones, towards intruder alarms which can send text alerts. So it's definitely an area that people are, I suppose, being forced to look at in terms of domestic, and certainly in the commercial sense. There's a lot of crime, I think happening.
Just on that, in connection or in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce, you've set up a business watch around the town. How does that work?
Yeah, through the Chamber of Commerce, we Jim Burke, who's the president, led the initiative to create a text alert system for businesses in the town. And I suppose how that works is, if a business has been the victim of a crime or has noticed a suspicious person, suspicious event, etc., they will get in touch with the Gardaí, who in turn will get in touch with Business Watch, who will then send out a text alert system to all of the members, which would be any retailers or any of the chamber members within the town.
Now, it was just after I've been burgled, I've been broken into, and it goes out because I don't know if it's a similar type of system, but there's a community text alert in Bailborough, and kind of we get text, there was a burglary yesterday, and I'm just thinking, well, that's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot I could do now,
Yeah.
Is yours more proactive?
It is, yeah. I suppose it's a, I don't know how you describe it. Really, it's a dynamic scheme in terms of it's live. If a retailer has been the victim of a crime, as soon as the Gardaí have been made aware of that, they will do their best to actually get that information over to Business Watch. So, look, we've only been set up since November.
Yeah.
And we're still in the, I suppose, the teething process of it, but certainly we would envisage it as being a very active live scheme.
Is one of the things that it does do, again, from my time in Dublin, and I knew a couple of security guys in the shopping centres, and from being there 5 days a week on an 8-hour shift, you got to know who was the shoplifters and what have you, and alleged shoplifters, I suppose I should say.
Yeah.
When they used to see somebody coming, okay, it wasn't text alert, it was they were all on the one walkie-talkie frequency, and they would say so and so was coming in. Keep an eye out for him. Is it possible to do that, but on text alert, or are you into sort of?
At the minute, I suppose the way the scheme runs is whether a crime has or hasn't taken place. If the owner or occupier is suspicious and is in touch with the Gardaí, if the Gardaí at the time feel that message is important enough to send out, it will be sent out. There's nobody going to be defamed in any text message. There is a lot of, I suppose, there are legal consequences to messages being sent out. But really, the idea.
Are you talking real time here?
Yeah.
Say
quite,
a well-known shoplifter walks past the shop, and somebody sees him going into another shop. He contacts the guards. The guards say, right, we know who he is. We know what he does. Is the text sent while he's still wandering around?
Well, I suppose to give you an idea of maybe a scam rather than an actual person, the bogus notes that have been sent around and bogus phone calls that retailers might receive about credit card machines, that had happened a number of weeks back, and the Gardaí were contacted, and the Gardaí would have been in touch with the Business Watch scheme. And that
what was the bogus?
It was a pay zone, the credit facilities, where an engineer came across the phone to try to get payments to be made, false payments to be made by the retailer to a bogus account. And as I said, the idea of the scam is that they will get retailers to put, for example, €100 through the machine and to say that they're going to refund it because they're trying to test the machine, whereas it's just a scam. They're trying to actually get fairly intuitive. But, yeah.
So the old shoplifters are thinking of the past. Why bother? Just
Exactly,
put it in a machine like that.
Yeah, stay as far away from your victim as possible.
So that's the security end.
Yeah.
Now the IT end. That's an end that kind of hugely broad in scope, and obviously your customer base is literally huge because 10, 20 years ago a couple of businesses had a computer. Now there are probably a couple of computers in people's houses. So what services do you offer?
I suppose in terms of our main customers would be commercial customers, where we would offer IT support, IT sales, so whether that be desktops, laptops, servers, the sales and support of all that. We provide services in terms of, I suppose, cloud computing infrastructures, so whether that be off-site data backup, cloud-based email, whether it be antivirus solutions, firewalls in terms of security, remote working, the ability to be able to work remotely. I suppose it's quite endless in terms of the amount of services or the IT services that we provide to businesses.
And you have home services as well. What
We do,
what
yeah.
services do you provide? Most people go to Curry's or the like, buy a laptop for as cheap as possible,
Of course.
plug it into the internet, and away you go. So
Yeah.
where do you come in a situation like that?
I suppose in terms of the domestic customers, the sort of services that we would provide are in the areas of setting up laptops, setting up wireless networks for iPads, for different types of tablets, for also maybe cabling if they wanted to set up their internet in a different room in the house, and also cleaning up laptops or PCs that would be running quite slow. That would be the main areas. We've also got another product which is called Genie, and what that does, Genie.
Genie.
Yeah. What that does,
It's packaging is in a bottle, is it?
it is, yeah, it's magical. What that does is it does three key things. It restricts the type of content that children are allowed to access online. So we can restrict that by age. So if you've got a 7-year-old and a 14-year-old in the house, we can automatically restrict the type of content that the child is able to view. Secondly, we can restrict the amount of time that a child can spend on the internet. For example, we could set that the child is only allowed maybe 3 hours of internet per evening and maybe all day Saturday. And then finally, it provides a built-in antivirus and intrusion detection and prevention.
Is the problem about things like NetGenie and kind of all those similar type of products is that generally parents get them to protect their children from stuff that's on the internet, yet the children know so much more about the computer. They say, yeah, that's great, man, that's bad. Yeah, no, that's wonderful, yeah. The mother puts it on, the child has it kind of circumvented in hours, minutes even, you know.
Yeah. I suppose the benefit of the NetGenie product in comparison to software-based products is that it's actually, I suppose, at the entrance of the house. So it's a hardware product that nobody apart from the parent will have access to, and it can't be disabled or the settings can't be changed without the single administrator or parent password.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to configure, and it's quite easy to actually restrict the type of access that kids can have, as I suppose internet savvy as they are. If they don't have the password, they can't get access to it. It's pushed away from the computer, so it can manage iPad, it can manage a laptop, it can manage a desktop, it can manage an iPhone all at the same time, rather than having to individually load up software and configure each device at a time. So that's, I suppose, the key benefits of it. As you say, it pushes it away from the control of the children and into the control of the parents.
Of the parent. Yeah. Now you mentioned passwords there fleetingly.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of all your passwords? Is there an easy way of doing that now?
There is actually. It's a good
because
question.
you used to be able to get away with a simple one.
Yeah.
First, and then you also used to be able to use the same one for everything.
Yeah.
Now there are literally so many.
Yeah. You've brought up two interesting points there. In terms of a password, the password as we know it, of I suppose an alphanumeric characters that we input into a screen is starting to dwindle, and it's moving into two-factor authentication, where we'll actually put in a one-time code that we can generate the same way we use for our internet banking. That's the type of security that we'll be using for our email or for our different forums that we go to. But in terms of actually generating passwords, secure passwords, there are a number of password toolboxes and software products that we could use. LastPass is actually it's an excellent tool. There's a paid version and a free version which gives you one master password and then gives you any amount of very, very hard to crack passwords that are kind of managed online. So that's an interesting piece of software for managing.
Is it easy to crack a password? My entire extensive knowledge of cracking passwords is what I see in the telly.
Yeah.
And somebody mutters something about an algorithm and here's something I made up.
Yeah.
They put it over the screen and, goes, zip, and up it comes.
Yeah, well, certainly in terms of a lowercase password, whether it be a letter from the alphabet and even numbers, it could be cracked within a matter of minutes with a relatively, I suppose, low-spec PC. In terms of making a password hard to crack, we need to use capital letters, we need to use lowercase letters, we need to use numbers, and we need to use symbols. And I suppose to specifically stay away from a dictionary word, so whether it be a word that we would find in a dictionary or a person's name, that's the kind of stuff that you need to avoid to, I suppose, mitigate the chances of your password being cracked.
Yeah. I remember I used to bank with Ulster Bank, and on their internet banking service, you didn't have a password, you had a passphrase.
Yeah.
And I thought it was quite unique because obviously in a phrase there might be 20, 30 digits in it.
Yeah.
And also was easy to remember
Yeah.
for yourself, but probably really hard to crack. But then they changed it to the old 11 digits and this and that, you know.
Yeah.
And the password, or the passphrase, I had up here.
Mm.
But of course, as soon as they went to numerical, where did the numbers go? Front page of the diary, so that when I open it up, I need it every time.
Yeah. It, as I said, really, where I suppose security is going is more into the area of possibly biometrics, as in something you are or something you have. So rather than what we use at the minute, something you know, as in a password, it'll eventually move into something you have, whether that be a key that you can generate passwords from, whether it be a fob, or something that you are, whether it be as in your fingerprint, your iris recognition, your facial recognition, your...
But we are talking PCs here now. We're kind of I was saying we're going PC, but I'm sure whoever manufactures PCs these days, they literally must have, their sales must have fallen off the everything is now at least laptops, and now laptops are becoming redundant because everything is moving towards tablets.
Yeah, tablets. I think towards the end of last year have overtaken the sales of laptops and certainly of PCs. So the tablets have their place, and as you said, they are becoming far more popular. But there definitely still is a place for the desktop and for the laptop in terms of businesses. But it's just, I suppose, it's finding the balance between the usefulness and the portability of the tablets versus the power of the performance of the laptops.
Yeah.
But that divide will obviously become narrower and narrower over time.
And even leaving tablets out of it, smartphones now, and incredible, you know. And probably 9 times out of 10, I check my emails and have an answer it on the BlackBerry, and may not go near the computer to check out emails maybe except once a week, and you press inbox and then you see 3 of 227 emails coming in, you know. Most of them you've either dealt with or deleted, but they obviously they have to come in on the laptop. But that the smartphones are even a step further. Yeah,
it's I heard an interesting analogy, I suppose, of the tablet versus the laptop or the desktop, and that is, I suppose, that we can consume information on our smartphones or on our tablets, but to actually produce information, we need to go towards the laptops and towards the desktops. And I think that's really what's happening, is that most users are consuming information, whether it be from a website or through social networking sites, whereas to actually produce, whether it be drawings or graphics or business documents, we still, at the minute, we still predominantly need to go to the laptop or go to the desktop. So I think that's where the divide is. But again, with more web services being offered, we will be able to produce as much on the tablet rather than just consuming the information.
Now, just going back to the desktops, that would be a product that you sell. Now, do you customize them for a particular client? A client will come to you and says, Dan, I want a PC, I want linked PC. I'm sure it's a more technical term. Network PC. And can they tell you what they want and you build it for them?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, obviously from scratch. You don't get the soldering iron out and a few resistors. And
in terms of, I suppose, just your first point about networking computers together, that would be a big area of our business, in networking computers for businesses. So whether it be 3 or 300 people in an office, they will need to be connected together so that they can share resources. That could be done wireless, or it could be done wirelessly.
What's best, and B, what's safest?
There's not really in terms of safety.
Surely if something is wireless, is that not easier to hack into? Now, if you have a PC in your kitchen table at home, and you have wireless, you're not probably too pushed. But if you're a company, and as you said, if you have a couple of hundred people working there, probably an international company with a lot of trade secrets, if everything is wireless, is it easier to get into that system than it would be to go along a wire?
Not necessarily. If the correct encryption and security is used with wireless networks, they can be made as secure as a wired network. But again, I suppose a lot of it comes down to the human at the end of the computer or at the keyboard, because if that person can be manipulated into opening a link, into logging onto a website, it doesn't matter what ether you use to actually connect to the internet, whether it be wired or wirelessly. That the attacker is going to have the information, because it's been given up to them, rather than, I suppose, that person maybe having to crack a wireless key. But no, it's security. It's not a massive concern, because there are wireless security products out there that can, I suppose, have it as secure as a wired network.
It's one of the services that you provide, or maybe even could provide, a information service, education for the staff how to avoid that.
Yeah,
because let's be honest, some of the emails that you get emails from AIB, and it's on AIB.ie. And if you look at it, you say, well, that seems to be coming from AIB, and yes, I do have an account. It's kind of when you get them from Bank of Ireland and TSB, and you say, hold on, they're asking me for passwords. And I don't have an account there. But when you get one, again, just use the AIB for example, and it looks as if it's coming from AIB.ie.
Yeah, the attackers are very good at masquerading where their emails are coming from. In terms of training is very important. We actually do provide training to I suppose, bigger organisations. We've done it in the past when they found it quite beneficial. There are a lot of resources online, but it is a service, as I say, that we'd be quite happy to provide to our commercial customers.
Yeah. How, in layman's terms, do they do that? How do they come along with AIB.ie? Is that just, we'll say, a picture and the real IP address is?
Yeah, look, to be honest, we could sit here all night about spoofing emails, and I could bring in the ins and outs of it, but quite simply, all they're doing is masquerading the email address that you see with the email address behind. In terms of how the email looks, they're just downloading links, they're looking at the AIB website, and they're saying, well, if AIB were to send out an email, how would it look?
How would it look?
Yeah, so to be totally honest, we could sit in front of a computer, and within 10 or 15 minutes, I'm sure we could design an email template and send it off appearing to be from AIB to any number of people. So it's not very hard to do. I suppose the science behind blocking it is the important factor. A lot of people can do this, but it's the people that we need to, like the likes of myself, that you need to stay a step ahead of. So, well, Daniel, thank you very much for coming in. As usual, time went so fast. I never got through half the things I wanted to talk about. But just to go back, if somebody does want to contact you, if they have a problem, and or they just want to find out more about your services, how do they contact you? Yeah, you can go on to our website, which is www.kincha.ie. That's CINNTE.ie. Actually, we can see it in the background. Or you can call us on 049 43 60080. We'd be quite happy to hear from you.
Daniel Barr of Kincha Technology, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for telling me about your company and delving a little bit into the mystery that is the internet. So that's it for this week. Hope you found something that will help you in your business. I've been Colm. You've been watching Business and Enterprise. Good night.